Hi guys, welcome to Wander. Today we're going to be doing the story of Natalie Sue Elise Arouette. Go and look on my channel for the first video if you'd like, but let's get straight into it. Natalie had a normal, unassuming childhood until her father, David, proclaimed his hate towards his own children, argued with his wife, Mary Beth, and grabbed Natalie and presumably beat her for drawing on his walls. Fast forward a few years, where she was now 9 years old, and the abuse seemingly escalated, where she and her 14-year-old brother, Lucas, were forced to hear their father scream and yell about the tiniest things, while their mother apparently made no attempt to stop him. One day, Lucas approached Natalie while she was sitting on the couch watching a movie, and asked her if she wanted to be cool and grow up like a teenager. She agreed. And he said, well, you know what guys and girls do sometimes, right? And then he proceeded to sexually abuse Natalie, which was heavily implied to be going on for 4 years until she turned 13. During the abuse, she tried to talk to a girl in her class, Mia, about it, but Mia sabotaged Natalie and spilled her secret, prompting online and real-life harassment during her elementary school years. Natalie was now 16, passionately trying, and enrolled in Walkerville Collegiate School for the Creative and Fine Arts. Due to a slip-up the night before, where she was unable to complete an assignment for her English class, her English teacher, Miss Nuke, I think that's how you say it, warned her that her time was up, which prompted a strange sense of calmness for the teenager. In her French class, she was caught drawing gory images of people being stabbed, knives, and things of the macabre sort. Her teacher, Mr. Levasseur, I think that's how you say it, saw Natalie's artwork and told her to erase it and get back to taking her test, before adding, "Your time is almost up, Miss Arlette." Natalie then began feeling as if time was always against her, the stress agitating her. Her next 2 periods passed unusually fast, before she met up with her boyfriend, Chris, who asked her to talk to him after her class. He told her that he wanted to break up and see other people because of how disturbed he was by her macabre artwork, implying that there was something psychologically wrong with her. Yet she didn't even try to talk to him about what was going on with her. He apologized, then walked away, leaving Natalie heartbroken. Once she got home, she went to her bathroom, her stress starting to get worse before she began carving her mouth into a smile, before sewing the cuts together with black thread and stitches. Despite how excruciating it was, Natalie smiled through the whole thing. That was until her mother found her. Natalie realized what she had done before she started crying. One hospital trip later, her mother scheduled therapy for her. Strangely, Natalie had never removed the stitches. When the therapist, Deborah, had asked her what was going on, Natalie told her that time was her biggest problem. She told her time makes you live through it, slowly progressing through life, being controlled by society, only to be tortured for seemingly no end until you find you no longer have a purpose, Natalie told her. The concept and mechanics of time are a vicious circle. It never slows down. Deborah then asked Natalie to tell her about the abuse. However, Natalie refused and insulted her therapist by calling her Blondie. The girl then said Natalie isn't here anymore. The therapist left to bring her parents in, and they all went home. That night, Natalie had a nightmare where a voice was telling her your time is finally up, before she woke up to find her hands and feet bound to a hospital bed, where she was hooked up to a heart monitor. A man, presumably the head scientist, doctor, entered the room, explaining to her that her parents agreed to give her mental drugs against her will, saying that they would likely improve her mental state. He then told her that she would be back to normal in no time and slipped an anesthesia mask on her as he began performing surgery. Natalie eventually woke up in the middle of the surgery, saying that she was being given multiple injections and some sort of mysterious substance being rubbed into her skin. Unlike the other patients who gained consciousness during surgery, she was able to respond and move about. The doctors noticed her heart rate increasing on the monitor, then saw her opened eyes. Natalie, injected with high amounts of the mysterious serum, broke free from her bound, ripped the face mask off her face and the tube from her arm, then sat on the edge of the hospital bed, shaking violently. She then stumbled towards the doctors, breathing shakily, and left. She then passed out after coughing blood for an unknown reason. She woke up again to the doctor/scientist saying that her surgery had gone horribly wrong. She glared at him, who looked away with a way out of guilt and shame, and he said that she was never supposed to wake up and that they would see how the botched surgery would affect her. He added that it seemed to change Natalie's appearance as well. The teenager looked into a mirror and quickly noticed that her once brown eyes had gone completely changed to green. The stitches were still in her skin, and she felt happy because of that and her new appearance. Natalie stood up, chuckling as she loomed over the doctor/scientist and said, "Your time is up." Two security guards heard the screams of the doctor/scientist and rushed to the room to see the doctor and the /scientist stripped to the bed, which he had been folded into a sandwich, his spine crushed. They then saw Natalie sitting on the floor while drying on the wall with the doctor's blood. She turned to look at them, smiling widely, before inviting them to play with her. The security guards aimed their guns at her, but she charged at one of them, grabbed a knife from a shelf of his weapons belt, and then stabbed him in the waist until it drove through his protective vest. The other guard dropped his gun at a shock, and Natalie walked up to him, pointed the blade at his chest, then sliced down to his gut. His organs spilled out onto the ground due to the severity of the wound, and then he collapsed to the ground, dying soon after. Natalie walked back home through a thunderstorm and knocked on the front door, waking up her mother. Mary Beth went to the front door and listened for a second, hearing what sounded like hysterical laughter outside, but stumbled back when Natalie bursted in through the front door with 2 knives in hand. Mary Beth hit her head hard against the coat rack until it entered her skull, causing the woman to bleed violently. She fell to the floor, gasping and paralyzed. Natalie knelt to maintain eye contact and showed her mother the 2 knives coated in blood. She coldly said that she was suffering, yet Mary Beth had done nothing to help her. Natalie sat on top of her mother and cut a V shape into her chest, peeled back the skin, tissue, and muscle to reveal her chest cavity. She broke the ribs and sternum to reach her mother's heart and then slowly pulled out the cavity before crushing it, causing blood to spray all over both her and Mary Beth. As her mother died, Natalie whispered, "Sweet dreams, your time was up." She put the destroyed heart into her mother's mouth before walking into the master bedroom. Her father, David, was woken up by the sound of the door being broken and his wife being absent. He saw his daughter smirking and standing by his side of the bed and noted that she was covered in blood. The stench of it was unbearable. David grabbed Natalie by her neck and threw her to the ground, stopping on her chest until she began to cough up blood for the second time. While she was down, she tripped her father, causing him to fall, and said that she was not his daughter. While he was momentarily incapacitated, I cannot say that word, she grabbed a pillow, smothered him with it, and stomped his face in until cracking sounds were audible. It was revealed that David's face was horribly mutilated, and he was crying in pain. Natalie stabbed him in the stomach and then retrieved an unknown wooden pole by the bed, proclaiming that she was going to need it. She laid on her father's stomach below the knives, then sat on it. The force was enough to squeeze the innards out of his body. He gagged and blood began to pour from his mouth, and suddenly his organs bursted from his mouth, breaking his jaw and killing him. Natalie nodded to the corpse and walked out of the room as she said, "Your time was up, Daddy." She walked to Lucas's room in search of him, expecting him to be in bed, but she was caught by surprise when he leapt out of his closet and hit her in the back of the head with a baseball bat. He hit her again, then stopped, winded. Natalie was now weak, breathing heavily as she bled out of the back of her head. She looked up at the ceiling, remembering how Lucas had abused her, then stood up as a rush of adrenaline coursed through her. She laughed hysterically before blocking his next hit with her knives. Natalie then promised her brother that he was going to hell, then slammed him into the wall. As Lucas began to lunge at her, she pinned him to the wall by his arms with her knives. Natalie then saw a butter knife, picked it up, and walked back over to him. She explained to him that the softest organ in the human body was the eye, being soft as butter, and then dug the butter knife into his left eye. He wailed in pain, but she ignored her brother as she removed both of his eyes, rendering him blind. She picked up a sharp pair of scissors and stabbed him in the abdomen with them, cutting his skin and muscle until she had reached his large intestine. Natalie had lifted the intestine and said how she loved macaroni before cutting it into sections. Lucas screamed again. When she was done, Natalie began to breaking all of his fingers and toes. He choked on his own blood and vomit before Natalie ripped off one of the fingers and forced it down his throat, letting him choke to death on blood, bile, and a severed finger. After murdering her family, the teenager walked into her room before seeing her stuff drop. She brought him to the bathroom with her before she noticed a pocket watch on the rim of the sink. She listened to its ticking for what seemed like an eternity before she proceeded to remove the face of the watch. She then repeated what she had told the therapist about time as she dug into her left eyeball until she finally managed to scoop it out of the socket. Then forced the face of the pocket watch into the empty socket until it had fit somewhat perfectly. She then adopted the name Clockwork. Clockwork walked out of her house and threw a tank of gasoline onto the house before throwing a cigarette into the trail of gasoline, setting the house ablaze. That's it for the Clockwork story. I hope it wasn't too icky. It made me cringe a few times. Please subscribe and like the video if you liked it, and I'll see you guys later.